Hello, lovely ninja parents. I am getting in here just before I hit record for this episode because I am going to do it in video and it'll go in the forums really soon, like basically now. And I'm also going to record, I'm going to record it like in audio for everybody else. So, and they will get that on Tuesday. But I wanted to just jump in here briefly ahead of time and say hello and how glad I am to be able to be bringing you this recording today. I have been out of the hospital for just about a week. It's really been quite a week. A lot of ups and downs and a slow recovery, but I think probably you could call it a steady recovery. It's certainly it's been slow, but it's been faster than the last time that this happened to me. So that was 9 years ago. And really, we wouldn't have any of this without it. So I also do try to think about being grateful. I'm just going to grab a piece of paper so that I have something in case I want to write down like, ideas for links or whatever. So please bear with me while I do that. But I just did want to jump in here quickly ahead of getting on just hitting record, just to say thank you so much for your support. There have been success stories since in my absence. Maybe possibly because I asked for them, but also I think partly because like you had some stuff to celebrate and that felt really, really good. And there's been lots of member engagement, people asking questions. I'm going to address some of those today here. And I don't know, I can't say enough in thanks for your support. And it's so good to see you taking care of each other in your fearless leader's absence. And you just the time that you have spent in the ninja parenting community and the idea that you're there now just means so much to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I think without further ado, I am going to start this episode. So stay tuned. I have to wait 5 seconds before I hit record on my cute little recorder here, and then we will get going. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to We Turned Out Okay. This is the show where we are always working to help you feel heard, seen, and cared for, even in difficult circumstances, even with whatever is going on in your life. And welcome. I'm Karen Locke-Culp. I am the host of this show, the founder of WeTurnedOutOKAY.com. I'm an author. I have degrees in early childhood education and human development and family relations. But right now I am coming to you as a recuperating, just out of the hospital, still recovering kind of person. And it's funny because I sort of list those things at the beginning of each show. And what I'm thinking about right now is how none of that saved me from bringing myself to the point of being hospitalized. Because I believe it was no accident that in October of 2020, I needed to go into the hospital for diverticulitis. And I don't want to get too complex into like the medical diagnosis. I more want to give you some lessons for what I learned, what I've been doing a lot of thinking about. And I also, a little later in the show, I'm going to bring you some answers to some questions. We've had some incredible questions in the ninja parenting community about parent-teacher conferences and virtual schooling or not just virtual schooling, but like how to talk to teachers and principals and what you can expect. And it's really been quite an odyssey for many of you listening, and it's been quite an odyssey for parents in our community, in the ninja parenting community. I frequently think of them as ninja parents, and recently one of them, a new mom in our coaching community, she started a post by greeting everybody as hello. I believe what she said was ninja warriors, and it was just the cutest. I'm like, I love that so much. So anyway, as I say, I believe it was no accident that I was taken ill with diverticulitis in October of 2020. There have been warning signs probably for months that I have been ignoring. And I suppose I should start by saying the last time I got diverticulitis was 9 years ago, in what had previously been the most stressful time of my life. Diverticulitis is a very painful thing that happens in your large intestine. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And I put it this way: I knew when it happened, when I was starting to feel it again, I immediately knew that that's what I was feeling. And so I went to the emergency room, and they confirmed that, yes, in fact, it was that. That took several hours because there's tests you have to do and scans and whatnot. But for me, it was definitely, there was a lot of PTSD feeling about it, because the last time I got diverticulitis 9 years ago, it was the beginning of the tendon disorder that took away my ability to walk more than a few steps for a long time. And then there was months and months, actually there was about 18 months of rehab from that. And then just when I thought my legs were getting better and I thought things were good, my thumb tendons started to have problems. My elbow tendons have had problems. And the problems, quote unquote, while we cannot go back as my doctor said, is we cannot go back in a time machine and confirm or deny this. But everybody thinks, including my rheumatologist and other doctors and physical therapists, people think that, there's a very good chance that the tendon disorder itself was caused by an ingredient in the antibiotics that I took. The ingredient is fluoroquinolones, and in the intervening years, they've been shown to cause tendon problems. And so, as I say, we can't go back, but I've had really debilitating tendon problems for a really long time. It involves, every time this happens, and I'm undergoing it now because it is October of 2020. This was one of the warning signs that I didn't heed. For the first time in more than a year, I needed scar tissue broken up in my hamstring. So that's where I am. I was in the hospital. It's always a really long story. It's taken me, 2 or 3 minutes to tell that little piece about getting the diverticulitis and the tendon disorder that it caused. So imagine I'm at the emergency room trying to explain all that and asking for a wheelchair, because even though I look normal, standing up isn't a problem. And even though standing up isn't a problem because of the thing I'm in the emergency room for, it still is a problem. And it's like, I had to, and plus we live in COVID, right? So there's all these different protocols in place, and I had to go with 3 or 4 different people for blood work and checking in and all kinds of crazy stuff. And every single time I had to explain why I needed a wheelchair to sit, but not necessarily to walk. And it was just a frustrating experience. So I was in the ER, get pronounced, and they decided to admit me because it was, quote, complicated. There was some fluid gathering. All along, I was told that if I'd waited, even, by the time I left the hospital, I was told that if I had waited a day or a day and a half longer, I might be in a situation which was life-threatening. So very glad I did not wait that long. Interestingly, one of the rabbit holes I want to go down today is I consulted with the surgeon who removed my son's gallbladder back in February. And I was 2 doors down from where my son had stayed in the hospital. Like I was, we had the same side of the hospital, penthouse suite, I suppose you could say. And my view, I was by the window, and my view was out towards the beautiful autumn New England landscape, and that was really I bring it up because it was really instrumental in the changes that my thinking underwent. Like I had time and space in the hospital to just think, and that was much needed. And I'm working to stick with those lessons now. But I'm thinking about, so the doctor who operated on my son is an excellent surgeon. We knew that then, but you may remember that I've talked about him as such a peculiar person. He was he was sort of doing almost a comedy routine for my son, and that carried over into what he was doing for me. So much so that the night before I saw him, the physician's assistant from his office came to the ER to say, okay, you're about to be admitted to the hospital. And I just want to prepare you because the doctor you're going to see is an excellent surgeon. And I said, what's his name? And she told me his name. And I said, oh, I know him and I love him. I'm so glad I get to see him. She said, good. We try to prepare people because he's not always, he's just not a typical doctor. So we like to prepare people for him. And I just loved that. I loved that. I think one of the lessons I want to talk about today actually is that there was a lot about this experience in the world of phones and social media and checking email and getting phone calls and medicine and pharmacies and tests and scans and everything that you can imagine that felt incredibly dehumanizing. And one of the lessons that I want to share is that I want you to think about doing everything you can to be very human for your child, for yourself, for your family, but also to recognize the feeling of when something is dehumanizing. And like it was, for example, I guess one example was it was very dehumanizing for me to feel like all of the care for my own issues was on my shoulders. Like I think, I don't know, maybe a dozen people came in to talk with me with little different bits of advice and little pieces of literature. And here's a chart on, on what you should be eating today. And here's a chart on, actually, I didn't eat anything for the first day. So for the first couple of days, it was a liquid diet. But here's all this, just you're awash in a sea of information and prescriptions that needed to be filled. And they went to the wrong pharmacy and like, who's going to call about that? And like, just, there's just so much about an experience like this that is truly dehumanizing. So when you find that doctor who needs to, they need to prepare you because this doctor is out of the ordinary. And it turns out that he's out of the ordinary in a wonderful way. He and his residents and students, I think they spent 25 minutes with me just answering my questions. The doctor insisted that a computer be found and brought in so that I could see my own organs. I could ask, and nothing was off the table. And in fact, when I said, so one of my hugest fears was the complications of diverticulitis meant there was fluid gathering in my large intestine. And I was fearful that was blood. And the doctor he paused and he said, I want you all to listen, you residents and students, I want you to listen here. We need to address the patient's concerns. He shared a story of a colleague of his who knew that a woman had breast cancer and basically told her, he could see on her, information. He didn't share that with her. He could see it on a scan or an x-ray or something like that. This sounds like it was years ago. And what he said to her was, honey, don't worry. And so he said to me, I want you to be able to ask any question. And my question for you right now is, why does it scare you that there would be blood in your intestine? And we were able to really talk about that. And I felt so much better. I'm getting tearful because that was one little human moment in a sea of moments where I just felt like a number. I mean, you're getting your bracelet scanned every 5 minutes so that they can, I don't know, take your blood pressure and give you shots and give you medicine. And it was much more overwhelming from that standpoint than it had been 9 years ago. But that was dehumanizing in its own way. In fact, I left with so little information that because we just didn't know at the time about the tendon disorder, et cetera. So seeing that doctor, being able to have a lot of time to think, you're up all night in a hospital. I was anyway, because I was in pain, but you're just sort of up all night because things are going on around you and your roommate's getting their stuff seen to. And that was actually another real humanizing thing was I went into the bathroom in the morning. And while I was in the bathroom, I thought to myself, I need to open this curtain. If my roommate wants me to, I would like to open the curtain so that she can also see the autumn leaves. And when I came back out, she had opened it like halfway. And she said, I hope you don't mind. I said, I'm so glad you did that. And we were able to just talk for like if we wanted to, you know what I mean? Like we both took naps and whatever, but we were able to just talk. And that was very humanizing. And so I think the first lesson that I want you to learn from my experience is it's the quirky things and the moments of connection that make us human. And I want you to hang on to those moments. I want you to recognize if you're feeling in your life or in your, we're going to get into talking about school and conferences and stuff like that pretty soon. And there are so many ways that we dehumanize the system, or, that the system, I guess, dehumanizes children and childhood. And I had a lot of time. I have had a lot of time to think since I was hospitalized and since I had this happen. And I think that that is the single gravest error that we are committing right now. No matter what, whatever it takes, we need to give our children ourselves as humans, and we need to look at them as humans. And I realize that what I'm saying is it can seem like a huge self-sacrifice, because what we're doing is we're setting our own needs aside. And we've been doing that for so long already. If you've got young children, you've been doing that for as long as you've had them, but things have gotten so much more severe and upfront and up close in the pandemic. And then with school starting, I guess, put it this way, all of the issues that I'm seeing have to do with how will somebody in authority treat you or treat your child. And the answer, I think one really measurable, useful axis for you to measure on is, do they treat them like a person, or do they treat them like a number? And are you feeling treated like a person or like a number? That, I think, is the lesson here. The more you can feel treated like a person, the more your child does, the better off everybody's going to be. So that's lesson one from the hospital. I'm going to write it down here. Lesson one, the human / dehumanizing axis. Okay. Lesson two is, this is an easy one. Sugar is an inflammatory food. The more sugar you can cut out of your diet or your child's diet, the less inflammation you will have. And so diverticulitis, anything that ends in itis, is an inflammation. In the pandemic, I mean, there are some warning signs, right? In the pandemic, I have turned to sugar and chocolate and things like that, really as a means of like feeling better and staving off the sort of existential awfulness for a little while. And I now understand what a bad idea that is. And I know that there are sort of, as vices go, there are worse vices until you land yourself in the hospital because you just stopped paying attention. So a couple things I stopped doing. I stopped taking probiotics probably more than a year ago now. Probiotics, by the way, are one of the things that has really helped me get better from my tendon disorder. It's been, and I basically got to a point about a year and a half ago where I was like, I don't need these anymore. I'm good. And I didn't take them up again in the pandemic. I think if I had, I might not have gotten diverticulitis, and I might not have gotten the hamstring scarring that I have gotten because the tendon scarring. Because probiotics, I had this great conversation with somebody from my gastroenterologist's office while I was in the hospital, and I said, "Is it?" I said, "This feels so superstitious and silly, but like, can stress cause diverticulitis?" He said, "Absolutely." He said, "There's a real connection between the brain and the gut. We don't understand it. We don't understand a lot about it, but it's there. Some people get diarrhea when they're stressed out. Some people get a rash. Some people get what you got. Like, stress is a huge consideration." And I think that one of the reasons that is for me is because I do tend to overeat and things I put on 7 pounds in the pandemic. I'm not sure if I have shared that specific number on the show, but like, I was beating myself up for that and feeling, not worthy and lots of things like that. Right. But the basic, I've been able to kind of get back to the basic idea of like what you put in your body matters. And the more sugar you put in your body, the more inflammation you're going to get. So, so the way that you recover from this is you have very little fiber for the first couple of weeks while the colon heals, and then you slowly build back up into your regular diet of like high fiber fruits, vegetables, blah blah blah, and water. You need a lot of water too, like to take care of this because your intestines need a lot of water. And part of the stress was eating too much sugar and not paying as much attention to that. But the other thing that I was told was, don't beat yourself up. Like this could have just happened because you have diverticules, and sort of taking it all into account, I'm forgiving myself for judging myself on getting diverticulitis. And the truth is, I've been under a lot of stress. I am prone to itises in general. And it's kind of all walloping at me right now. So tendonitis is before the scar tissue, when it's just an irritation of the tendon, that's also an itis. And so I'm just trying to be mindful now. I'm letting my colon heal. As I say, I'm forgiving myself, both for judging myself and for like doing this in the first place. So that's the second lesson. Like, I guess I will take it to a bigger than like sugar causes inflammation, but more to like paying attention to what we are eating and drinking is crucial for good health. And that should have been clear to me months ago, and it was not. So I'm just going to write good nutrition, and maybe I will later on put in the notes, put sugar causes inflammation, because that's really what that is a part of. And then the third one that I want to give you is, this one is actually the first lesson that I came up with, but I think as relates to all of this, it's the most invisible one, and it is maybe the most important one. And so if we're sort of thinking of this as like a top 3 list, right? So first we have, think about the human and dehuman sort of axis. And the second one is what you put in your body matters. The third one is how you think about yourself matters, is the sort of the nutshell here. So I'm just going to write that. How you think about yourself matters. I, once again, have been, as I did the first time, because I need to be cared for right now, right? I'm not cooking my own food. I'm not, it's interesting, eating such a low level of nutrients diet has really caused me to have these weird sort of energy spikes where like an hour or so after a meal, I feel pretty good. But then like another hour later, I have this tremendous drop in energy because I'm eating, it's not garbage, but it's very low nutrient food. So potatoes without skin, crackers, like cheese, eggs, things like that. Particularly eggs have been wonderful and crucial. Things that basically get digested before they get to the large intestine. And that has meant that there's very little, I've had relatively low energy compared to my usual high fiber nutrition, kind of nutrients in my diet. And I've really, really noticed that this time. And as a result, not only am I not being the mom, that I, and not only am I not being the mom, but not being the sort of community leader in the Ninja parenting community that I usually am, that I like to be. People need to do things for me, right? So we get home here's a telling example. We get home from the hospital, and I have 2 boys. One is 20 and one is 16. And the 20-year-old came and got me. So again, with COVID, like nobody's visiting, right? It's just so very dehumanizing. And but I was okay about it. I had a lot of time to think. I understood what was happening to me. I think in a lot of ways, I had a lot of advantages. Just the fact that I have insurance, right, is one. Good insurance that I didn't feel that I needed to worry overly about affording a hospital stay and that sort of thing, and the medicines and etc. So there was a lot to feel good about. My son picks me up. He drives me home in just the most gentle way. In fact, we were on the way home and I was like, I just want to say thank you so much for being such a good driver and for like taking such good, care of me on the way home. And he was like, well, you're welcome. We get home and I've literally just sat down and I've been making this little thing called a student cafe for the boys because my college student is completely virtual. And it just felt like something that would kind of get them up out of the basement, shake things up a little bit. I remember cafes in college and they were just, you'd find food left out for you. And there'd be logos and like taglines about like what a great school you're going to. And so I tried to recreate that for him, for them, but really at the moment for him, because he's the virtual one. And I sat down and he sat down across from me and we're talking for like 5 minutes. And behind him, the lights that are on a timer, I noticed the lights in the student cafe on this little shelf behind him. And I said, Max, I think I'm not going to be able to keep up with the student cafe for the next week or so. And like, I'm so sorry. And he says, I won't swear because we have a relationship where swearing is okay in our private life. He says, Mom, you just got out of the bleeping hospital. Like, don't worry about that. And so what I realized was that I have been doing too much sort of like trying to anticipate their every need and trying, like, I haven't really been letting them, I think in some ways I've been very good about it, but in some ways I haven't. And I've been a helicopter mom in some ways, I guess is really what I'm trying to say. When you're a helicopter mom, you're not taking care of yourself. You're leaving everything in the road for everybody else. And so when this switch flipped and I ended up, in pain in the hospital, etc., not only am I feeling bad because I'm not doing those things, I'm also feeling like a tremendous burden. Like people have to do things for me now. And I realized just a few days after getting home how wrong I had been about both of those things. First of all, not a burden. Like I have things to contribute for. I think that's the most important thing is like, and not only that, but I am worthy of being cared for. Like, actually, so one of the ways that I did get cared for is my youngest made my mom's applesauce for me. So my parents live in Colorado. There was no way my mom was coming out to make her applesauce for me, but we happened to have a bunch of Cortland apples in the fridge. And the only way that I can eat apples is when they're cooked, right? So it's got to be applesauce right now. And even that I'm having sparingly. But so Jay and Ben, my husband, they cut up apples and then Jay basically cooked them down into applesauce, used an apple mill to mill them. And he was thrilled to do it up until sort of the point when it came to actually do it. And then he was like, oh, fine, whatever. But as he sort of went through it, he was enjoying the process. And then he milled the apples and he's sort of commenting, he's like, they're pink. The applesauce is pink. And I was like, yep, that's because we use Cortland's. And it was just, anyway. And then we had the experience of like eating this warm applesauce together. Oh my God, it was so good. And like, just produced such good feelings. And I realized like it is bad to feel like a burden because then I might not have asked. I might have said, well, I will sacrifice and not ask for this thing that I really want. But I gave my son like the joy of creating something for somebody, for feeling needed and of enjoying the product. And he basically said, you know what? I think I would want to do this again if we could get some more apples. Like because we had enough apples to make just about a quart of applesauce. And I was like, there's so much good about this right now. I'm not a burden to them. They feel needed. And I am giving them the independence that they need in ways that I hadn't been before, right? So Ben took over the student cafe and we made some very much needed changes. Like I tried to sort of systematize everything in my life. And so what happened was I had like gotten really regimented about like what the student cafe would be like and look like and feel like and what things would go there. All that had to be blown up and redone because I can't do it. And I love that. I was like, this is the future. So it's a little bit like I used to have a sort of format for the podcast where I would like 1 week it was this, and then the next week it was an interview, and then the next week it was answering questions, and then there was some sort of format. And the pandemic happened, and I started to say like when an episode drops on schedule, and that's the only schedule, and that has been so good because it's really opened up a lot of other creative outlets and creative things to happen. So very neat. So the third lesson here is how you think about yourself matters. And when I think about myself as a burden and as a needy person who isn't necessarily worthy of being taken care of, that's bad for two reasons. One, I'm not getting what I need. And two, I'm modeling for my children a way of living that I never want anyone to feel. And so I'm asking you to take that lesson to heart. All right. And I'm going to read them back. So lesson 1 is there is an axis of human on one side and dehumanized on the other. And whenever we are dealing with our children or a bureaucracy or a bureaucracy and our own feelings, we need to be aware of that axis, and we need to always go with the human, the good human feelings, right? That's number 1. Lesson 2 is that sugar is an inflammatory food. Good food really matters. And so one more lesson that this surgeon talked about. He said that it used to be that appendicitis happened only to teenagers, basically 10 to 19. It used to be that gallbladder surgery, gallbladder problems happened only to women, sort of 40-ish women. It used to be that diverticulitis happened only to, quote, grandma and grandpa, was what he said. He says, and now anyone can have any of these ailments at any time. He says the worst colon he ever worked on was a 24-year-old. And his sort of theme is like, what's causing this? We don't know, what's causing this. And nobody sort of knows. No one can point definitively at what is causing this, but it's definitely a clear pattern. It's clear and obvious. I mean, God, just in my family, it is, right? Like, I've got diverticulitis for the second time in a decade, and my son had his gallbladder out at 19 years old. Like, it's really clear. Something's going on here. And he basically said, when I was a kid, so he's probably a couple decades older than me. I would say he's probably well into his 60s. And he says, when I was a kid, you'd go to McDonald's, maybe early 60s, something like that, 60-ish. You go to McDonald's once a week, and it was such a big joy. And like, it was the only fast food restaurant that you could go to was McDonald's, basically. And so once a week, where he grew up, they would go to McDonald's, and it was like a huge, big thrill. And now, the McDonald's is next to the Burger King, which is next to the Honeydew Donuts, which is next to the TGI Fridays, which is next to the Dunkin' Donuts, which is next to the ... and on it goes. We've gotten so much more into processed foods with additives, and so much of that is so bad for us. That's my conclusion. That's not his conclusion. So much of that is so bad for us. And so now we are seeing ailments that we never used to see outside of certain populations because we are just damaging our bodies. And so that's lesson 2. Good nutrition is really important. And then lesson 3 is how you think about yourself matters. So I want to conclude this part of today's episode by saying I'm sharing these to help you think of places to come from, not as stuff you should do, okay? And there is every chance that your toddler will balk at the good food that you're putting in front of them. That doesn't mean that you, what I really don't want you to do is just say, I'm washing my hands of this stupid woman who thinks that like she knows what's best for me and my family. Instead, what I want you to do is say, okay, I'm coming from a place of putting good food on the table for my child. Whether my child eats it or not, that's their concern. And when a child is hungry enough, they will eat the good food. They will because they're hungry, right? And I've got lots of episodes on things like that. I had a really great conversation with a food coach one time. And what I'm going to do is link to that episode. I can't remember. It's awful. I can't remember her name. I feel like her first name is Jackie, and she's written a book because she was a picky eater herself. And so she knows what that is like. So I'm going to link to her episode. And as I say, I have no idea what the number is. I feel like it was somewhere in the 200s, maybe. So I'm going to link to the picky eating episode. And as I say, I want you to, these are places where I want you to come from. That I've been really thinking a lot on this recently. Where am I coming from if I'm feeling like a burden, right? Versus where am I coming from if I'm thinking about the love and connection that can come with somebody milling applesauce, like making applesauce with your kids, right? There's a huge difference there. And so I never, ever want you to feel like I'm just giving you a list of things to do. That's very dehumanizing. It's very inhuman to sort of, we have, these listicles that we all get, right? And instead, I want you to think about where you're coming from. And so if today's nutritious meal is cast aside or not, your child doesn't want to eat it or whatever, another opportunity will come up for you tomorrow to give them another one and another try. And the more we can stay positive and keep the pressure off of ourselves and our kids, the better. That is also very human and humanizing. So, okay, what I really hope is at the end of 34 minutes of recording is that I've said some things that make sense to you, some things that resonated. I want to keep going because I have a couple of questions from the Ninja Parenting community that I want to get to. And I just want to say thank you so much to you for being here, for your support, for all of the cool connections. I mean, I haven't been able to get into email very much, but when I have, what I have seen is lovely responses to an email that my son helped me send out actually while I was still in the hospital. I wrote this email and I basically said, I'm in the hospital. Here's how I got here. Here's what it means, for people in the Ninja Parenting community, for people who subscribe to my We Turned Out Okay playbook. Just on that note, I am for the first time I've made a commitment to do November's playbook. So the playbook is this thing that I send out each month. It is a calendar. It's a workbook. It's a place for you to feel whole within yourself. It's delivered, if you live in the United States, it's delivered by the first of the month. And it comes in your mailbox, and it's like Christmas when it gets there. If you are a Christian, or if you are a person who celebrates Christmas, it's just like, I don't know, fireworks and rainbows and fun. And you're like, yay. And I know that other people feel that way. I've been so busy creating and just doing all of the little things that you're supposed to do every day that led me to be in the hospital, that I have never done a playbook myself. Well, this month that's changing. I've decided that November is my first playbook. And November is all about cultivating gratitude and figuring out who inspires you and what you can do in this world that isn't big, crazy stuff that you'll never do, but that is just a small step that you can take each day. And anyway, if you have an interest in reading more about the playbook, you can go to WeTurnedOutOkay.com/playbook and read more about it. I hope I hope it resonates and you take me up on it. It's very humanizing. It's a very human thing. And I'm looking forward to doing Novembers, and I'm ashamed that I've not done them yet, but I'm going to now. So, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. It feels like one of those nice, quiet, small things I can do for myself to feel good in challenging times. So I sent this email out basically saying, like, just kind of trying to help people understand like what is happening because I'm in the hospital and I've got diverticulitis. And one of the things I did was I said, I asked folks in the Ninja Parenting community to get in with questions because I would still be able to, jump in and answer them, but also because while I wasn't able to do that, that you could get the support of the other people in the community. And they've just stepped up so beautifully, and I'm just so thrilled. I've gotten some great questions. There's been some great support. There were some awesome success stories. One mom was thrilled because the bedtime routine is not as difficult now. And one mom was thrilled because they were celebrating. She gave her daughter something called nightmare spray. And I love this so much. She basically combined water with some essential oils. And she told her daughter, you can spray this to help with nightmares. You can spray this. You can basically point this at the place where your nightmares are coming from, and this will take it away. And some kids, anyway, find that this helps. I love it. She didn't basically say, "I'm not commanding you." She didn't say that, right? She didn't say, "This is something that worked for me." She was really honest with her daughter. In fact, what she said was, "I've heard that this works for some people." And so point it where you think the nightmares are coming from, and then you can, that will alleviate them. And she was expecting her daughter to sort of point them at their, her closet or her under the bed or something like that. The daughter pointed it at her own head because she knew that's where the nightmares were coming from. So cool. So anyway, lots of success stories and wonderfulness in the Ninja Parenting community. And two questions that I'm going to focus on for today. They have to do with school, with evals, with the pandemic, right? And so the first one is this is more of a discussion that has been going on, and again, I have been loving it. When I've been able to get into the Ninja Parenting community, which admittedly has not been as much as I would like this week, I'm thrilled to see these questions and to see people supporting each other and the kind of questions that are coming up. So Mama Llama says, I am thinking ahead to how we can help prepare for kindergarten. And basically, I bring this up because Mama Llama has a spirited 5-year-old, just turned 5. He's going to be going into kindergarten in the fall. And he has been home basically thriving for 8 months after we figured out how to make that work. This is a boy who's he's had a very good routine. We've figured out how to limit the screen time. Mama Llama has figured out how to limit the screen time for him. There's been lots of wonderful learning and engagement and joy. And now it is time. I love this too, because after lots of thinking and conversation with her parenting partner, Mama Llama has decided it's time for him to return to, he needs kids. He needs to be like within 6 feet of other humans besides her and her parenting partner, which is they're the only 2 humans that he's been in contact with for 8 months, and just in the pandemic. And so there's a conversation about how do I best prepare him? And I got in, and so Mama Llama, if you're listening, I really, you basically say, so I'm going to read what Mama Llama says. After discussing with my close circle, we have decided to proceed with the school evaluation process. I'll be calling them this week to get the process started. I see some tangible ways this could help and not really much downside other than dealing with the hassles of the bureaucracy and fear of the unknown. We are also in a search for a new pediatrician, and I won't really get into that quite as much, but she writes, this is scary, but we have a lot of support and we can do this. And so that attitude, first of all, is so great, and it carries on in this post. I wrote back, I love your thinking, and I totally agree with you on your decisions about finding a pediatrician, about getting an evaluation, as long as you remember a couple things, that the problem is not with little Llama, but that it is instead with the system. He's amazing. We call him Little Llama in the community. And we've seen so much growth in him by giving him what he needs through the pandemic. And I implore her to remember those lessons. I also say one caveat that I have is that they use the evaluation as information only, and that they understand they're free to take or leave any recommendations or suggestions as they relate to little llama. And the third thing is where I say, as I say, I think I got a little cynical. So Mama Llama, I hope that you took this. I know that you did take it, and we were able to talk about it more, but I think so. The third thing has to do with schools have their own best interest at heart. Teachers, administrators, people like that. They can't. There comes a point where it's hard to serve both the institution and the individual children. And I have seen some tragic things perpetrated on kids. And it's funny because I wrote that my idea about this comes directly from working within a preschool program. But honestly, the things I saw weren't in our preschool program, which is an incredible preschool program, state of the art, working with special needs kids. And typical kids, and creating lots of human, wonderful connections for children. The problems that I saw, I will say, I felt like sometimes when I was included on things like IEP meetings, that to me was nerve-wracking, because that was really where, in our program, that was the only place where I saw a diversion between what the child needs and what the school needs. And that was now a long, long time ago. So my hope is that this has been streamlined a little bit, at least in programs like mine, like the one that I worked in. And maybe everywhere, right? Some of the, I think we could wish for it to be everywhere, but we know that there are going to be programs where things are a little more authoritarian, programs where things are a little more progressive. Authoritarian generally resorts to negative discipline, progressive generally resorts to positive discipline. So we can think for ourselves on how we feel about the proposed disciplinary actions. As kids get into elementary school and teachers tried to find ways to keep their charges from running wild or whatever, I heard of some awful, really sick things, ranging from forcing kids to chew gum all the time so that they would stop talking, to literally tying their chairs to other chairs, to using double-sided tape to stick them to their seats, to weighted blankets, those kinds of things, that are all done in denial of what a child truly needs. And I just wanted, I very much want you listening, and I wanted Mama Llama to keep those things in mind. Like, it's possible that a school, consulting about an evaluation might try to paint a child in a negative light to their parents, basically so that they can then do what they want to do to that child. And sometimes what they want to do isn't for the best. I hope that makes sense. It feels very scary to say, but it is a truth that I have seen and understand. I envision a lot of good in your future and in Little Llama's future, and I hope I can be helpful for everybody on this journey. And I love, this was what I wanted to highlight. I love what Mama Llama comes back with. She says, I guess where I'm coming from is I know the system has challenges, and in a different world, we wouldn't even need public schools, but this is where we are. This is what we have to work with. So I want to do what I can to set him up for success in the system that we actually have access to. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I write back to say that I'm proud of Mama Llama, and I'm saying this right now to you, Mama Llama. I'm so proud of you for framing things this way and for saying, this is our decision. This is what we want. And then I want to read you the end of all of this so far, anyway, in our forums, which is Mama Llama says, the director of Little Llama's preschool program and I had a great chat today. She has an intense kid as well, so she gets him and has been very helpful working with him. She said she thinks it's great that we are doing an evaluation with the district and wishes more parents were proactive like that. They're going to work with us on whatever we need, and it takes some of the pressure off me. We are all being open about the struggles that he has, and we are working as a team to help him thrive. So here we go. And I just love that sense of adventure. I love that you have found folks to work with you. So this one wasn't as much of a question as I wanted to bring you, the listener, in on the journey that one parent that I work closely with has taken in lieu of, the pressure that we can feel around our spirited child, our explosive child. Sometimes kids like that are called that. Kids who do a lot of acting out, who have frequent tantrums, who bite, who run from classrooms, who hit other kids. These are kids that a lot of listeners have. And we don't always have the option of homeschooling or of, sending them to a school that we feel is going to be better for them. And so this is the attitude. If that's your experience, this is the attitude that you need to come in with. And so that is really why I wanted to bring that one to your attention. The other one is we have a mom. Her name is Jen. She's been in the community for a really, really long time. Hello, Jen. I'm glad you're here. And Jen wrote Parent-Teacher Conference in a Pandemic. So Jen's daughter is I feel like a second grader, and has been struggling with virtual school. Feeling basically what Jen has done about it is she's given her daughter some tools that are, how can I say this, that are unconventional. And it's finally time to have a conference with the teacher. And what she's done is I'm really trying to find a way to protect everybody in this situation. Like, I don't want, all right, I'm going to start again. So Jen has sanctioned some unconventional things, and as a result, her daughter missed an assignment, I guess is the best way to put it. And so Jen then tried to kind of go back on those unconventional things and basically say, like, okay, now we've been doing this and you've been successful. Let's try it the other way, the conventional way. And that was a big old nope. That did not work for her daughter. And so now they're going into this conference, and Jen is saying, like, she's got such great questions for the teacher. How can we make this situation better for my daughter is the ultimate of many, many questions she brings to this conference. And then she writes, the conversation with the teacher was not helpful. She was very black and white about it. The options are virtual schooling, hybrid schooling, or homeschooling. I said there's a lot of gray in between, and I explained some experiments we could try on a temporary basis to see if it would help. The teacher wasn't receptive to those ideas and said she doesn't have the authority to change the expectation, which I'm sure is very true. She suggested I talk to the principal, so I have an email out to her asking for an appointment, waiting to hear back. One of our other other ninja parents, ninja warriors, as this new ninja parent says, is her name in the forums is It's a Mother. So hello, It's a Mother. And this is some of the support that I was talking about before. This is the discussion that I'm just loving seeing in the forums. It's a Mother writes, oh, wow, Jen, that is such a disappointing response from the teacher. I too, in their conferencing and their talking with the teacher, I too got a rather cold black and white response from a school administrator replying to my email with questions related to something going on. I don't get what's going on with them. What are the expectations placed upon the schools and staff right now? Like, these are such great questions because teachers are not the enemy here, right? Like, we are all trying to figure it out. Is some higher power stating, It's a Mother continues, that the rule for virtual learning is this particular rule, that this departure from what Jen had been expecting of her daughter? Is all this stuff written down somewhere that parents can look at? These are all questions I have about other health and privacy related school protocols, but academic would also be great to know. Thinking of you, Jen. Jen writes back to say she got a promising email back from the school counselor. So Jen is doing such a great job of advocating for her daughter here. She is not going to just say, okay, the teachers told me that this is what I have to do, so this is what I'm going to do. Instead, she's saying, this is not right for my daughter. My daughter needs something different. And so she's finding ways to say, they are both finding ways to at least start asking the right questions. And I believe this gets back into some of the lessons that I brought up from being in the hospital. We have to, it would be incredibly dehumanizing for Jen to do what the teacher had suggested, which is to have more consistent rules, was her solution. Again, I completely understand why one would have that. Not blaming teachers here at all. Teachers are doing the best they can. Many teachers are parents who are also struggling wickedly in this. I just want to gather you all up in a huge, big hug is really where I'm at right now. But it's so dehumanizing what is happening to kids. And so Jen is not taking that for an answer. She is saying, I'm upholding the worthiness of my child to get what they need. And I'm just super, super proud of you. It's a mother. I'm super proud of you too. You are doing that as well. And you're asking the right questions. So one of the great things about being a coach, which is what I am, is I get to help people get to the right questions. So I actually posted in the forums recently a success story in which I am asking the right questions for me, for my body. What is my body trying to tell me is my ruling question right now. My body gives clear indications of what it needs and I need to listen. The brain upstairs needs to really, really listen. And these ideas are really emerging for me right now, because the best thing that we can do for our kids in the face of parent-teacher conferences and disobedience and tantrums and biting and evals and everything is, it really comes back to asking the right questions. It really, really, really comes back to asking the right questions. So I'm going to wrap this up right here, actually, right now, and I'm going to implore you to ask, to start to sort of write down, keep track of the questions that are coming up for you. And because sometimes it takes a while before we understand what the right questions are. So what's going on with the schools? What's happening within the schools that, what are the expectations being placed upon them? I love that question. Is there a higher power stating what is supposed to happen here or not supposed to happen? What are these rules that our kids are supposed to be living under? And if we start to ask those questions, and we don't feel like we're getting the right answers, I mean, then now we're seeing what's happening. I think we get a much clearer picture of what's happening. I think the last thing I'm going to share about myself is every week I do, for almost 2 years now, every single week I've done an evaluation. Most weeks I've done an evaluation, an assessment of my previous week. What am I celebrating? What inspired me? What lesson did I learn? And always there are some questions at the end of that, which you rate on a 1 to 10 basis. This is something that a coach named Dan Blank taught me that I love, 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 love. So I'm going to link to my interview with Dan Blank so that you can hear from him if you haven't already. And so 2 of the questions are, one is rate on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I've done no work, and 10 being I'm done, how much work you did this week. And the other question that I want to highlight today is rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how much progress you have made. And progress and work are different. I love that distinction. So consistently in August, in September, in October of this year, I have been rating myself like an 11 in work. And I will literally say, I got an 11. I'm doing too much work. I'm doing way too much work. I need to stop doing so much work. like in capital letters, I've been writing this, right? All caps in my assessments. And then the other thing is, in terms of progress, I've been rating myself as not making as much progress because I'm doing too much work. So, so these are the questions that I ask myself. And I'm so curious for you, what feels like the right questions. If you're watching this in the Ninja Parenting community, or if you're listening to it and you are a Ninja parent, jump in and let us know like what your thinking is on all of this. What are the right questions for you to be asking? I think we need to start there. That's how we're going to get through this. We start by figuring out what are the questions that need answers right now. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I really felt a lot of support and love from you during this ordeal, not just the pandemic, but like during these last few weeks of diverticulitis and fear and pain. One of my coaching clients wrote to me and said, "Thank you for being a model of how to take care of yourself." And that, again, that's a very good question for me to be asking. What am I teaching coaching clients by leaving everything in the road for everybody and not having anything left for myself, right? So Ninja Parents, there will be some changes coming. One of the most compelling ones, I think, is tomorrow evening, if you're listening in real time. We're still doing our book club, our We Turned Out Okay book club. It's just that we're gonna basically wrap it up in 2 meetings, this week's and next week's, so that book club will end at least for the year by mid-November. So we'll be reading a couple of chapters this week, and then the rest of the book the following week, which I think is 3 chapters, I think. I'm excited because the chapters right, for tomorrow night are something like, take these lessons, don't pay any attention to these ideas. The book is Educating Happy Kids. So it's don't pay any attention to these sort of scholarly ideas, but instead pay attention to these. Is the second chapter we're reading is about like, what should we pay attention to in terms of our kids' education? And I'm excited because this feels like it's dovetailing for me with what's going on right now. Finally, I'm remembering I am part of a virtual summit that starts next week. It is a summit for parents. I am actually talking all about the playbook that I create and like how play is such an important thing for parents, not just children, to do. I would say that's really the basis, the vast majority of my speaking, my conversation with Sarah Schelt, who is the woman who's running the conference. The vast majority of my time is, why is play important for adults as well as kids? And then we do talk about the playbook at, just for a little bit, because I was invited to be a part of this conference because of the playbook, which Sarah, I'm so grateful to you if you're listening. That felt so good to be able to talk about play and the importance of it. I am, as you can tell, working on that in my own life. For me, the podcast is play. And right away in the hospital, I started thinking of like, what am I going to tell parents? What lesson can I bring that folks need to know right now, that I'm learning from my experience of being hospitalized with this crummy condition? So you can find the links for that particular virtual summit. It's free, by the way. You can watch the whole summit for free. It starts next week, if you're listening in real time, the second week of November. And I'm very excited and honored to be a part of it. I am also excited and honored to be able to say thanks to the 23-time winner of the Husband of the Year Award, Benjamin Culp, for all of his work. He's our producer. He's the voice that you hear at the top of this show. He is a relentless supporter of me and what I create, and I would not be here without him. So thank you so much, Ben, for everything that you do for me and for us. And I love you. All right, I love you too, listener, and I am very grateful that you're here with me, and I will see you and talk to you next time. Bye. All right, now I'm going to wrap up for you watching. Again, thank you so much for watching. And I'm just glad that you're in the community. I'm really grateful that we are walking this path together. And I'm going to go get some rest now. Probably I'm going to go take a nap. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye.